Hi Gav, thanks for joining me. It's been nearly 8 weeks now since we last took to the field against TNS, which was like a lifetime ago, really. But how have you been finding this lockdown period so far?
Yeah, it seems a long time ago now, doesn't it? Since we come back up at TNS, we find it fine. Look, you've got to put into context. At the end of the day, we're talking about football, but there's a world around us that this is literally a matter of life and death. And in my head, that's the way I qualify it. I love the game, love my job. I miss the lads, miss the supporters, miss competing, etc. But the truth be told, this is about life and death and staying safe. So that's the most important thing for me.
The squad as well. I'm sure you're in regular contact with them. I hope they're keeping fit and well.
Yeah. I've tried to let them be, if I'm being honest with you. I think it's important that they look after their families and make sure that their lives are fine. At the moment, we touched base obviously and had some Zoom calls, etc. And that's been great. And the banter's been pretty good in those as well. But to be fair to our lads, they've been fantastic. They've been fantastic in the way they've carried themselves. They've also been fantastic in the way in which I suppose they've just engaged with the process. It's about being sensible. It's about doing what's needed. But they've kept themselves in good condition. They've been sent some stuff to do as well, to keep them ready and able to move if they need to. But yeah, it's all been really good, to be fair. And I'm quite proud of the way in which they've dealt with this as well, because a lot of uncertainty in this period, and sometimes that's not an easy thing to deal with. But they've handled that with aplomb so far, and it's probably a bit frustrating. We feel as if we're up to full speed now in terms of squad strength, etc. The last game we had was away at TNS, and I think our second half performance, I was really happy with that. So we were looking to kick on, but hey, listen, that's football. As I said to you earlier, this is more about life at the moment.
The supporters too, of course. I think you and a few of the players rang around the fan base a few weeks ago, just to check on how they're doing. Any message for them at the moment?
Yeah, well, obviously hope everyone's well first and foremost. That's the most important thing. Yeah, the players, they wanted to make a few phone calls. That came from them as an idea to, just to touch base with a few people around the club. It's nigh and impossible to make a phone call to everyone, but at least they made some phone calls just to see if everyone's okay. And I think that's nice, and I think that it's something that's been replicated across football. I think football sometimes gets a bad rap for a lot of things, but there's a lot of good stuff that goes on that people don't hear about, and at the top end, and just delighted that a lot of our lads show those good humanistic values of people who are central to our club and just checking in to see if they're okay. So I thought that was a lovely touch.
Obviously, it's difficult times for the club at the moment, as it is lots of other clubs around the country. How are the club coping at the moment?
I've already talked about the players. I think they've been, fantastic in the way they've conducted themselves. But as a club, I've got to say that the board have been fantastic, hugely resilient. I'm really proud of the way in which we've worked together and shuffle the pack to make sure that we can make our commitments. So our board have been absolutely fantastic in that regard. And I've got to say, some advice and support and guidance from the Vale Glamorgan Council has been really sort of valuable and worthwhile at this time as well. And it's a difficult time for all, but to see everyone sort of coming together and helping each other out has been quite humbling, really. And it's sometimes in difficult circumstances you find the best in people, and at the moment I'm certainly finding that.
And of course, there's been lots of talk about how the season might be concluded when it is safe to do so. What are your thoughts on how the season might come to an end?
I think the key thing there is safe to do so. As a relatively educated person, I suppose I've been trying to think of what I would do in different scenarios, and I think in many ways it's very difficult to keep everyone happy. It's a horrible situation. But for me at the moment, the safety aspect is the most important. You've got players who might return to play, who will go back to families. Some of those families might be vulnerable. Some of those family members might be vulnerable, sorry. You've got some of our players who've got, wives or girlfriends who are, in the later stages of pregnancy at the moment. You've got some people who look after maybe elderly parents or grandparents, etc. And that's the main thing for me, is that, to make sure that when we do return, it's safe. Personally, I can't see us returning to play football if there's no testing. I don't think that is the right thing to do. But I'm not a policymaker, I'm not a lawmaker, but I think that's just common sense. At the moment, it's obviously a difficult situation for us all. To be fair to the FAW, they've sent out some advice on what might happen and how the season might restart. But obviously, the later that goes on, the more games that you'll need to fit into a short period of time. And I think then that, the lads going back to work, for example, trying to fit in, away games in North Wales midweek is going to be very difficult. And I think then that plays into, other teams' hands. But truth is, we're probably all in a similar position. I'm not a medical person, but I do listen when the head of FIFA Medical says that it shouldn't be resuming. It does hit home a little bit when Holland and France, and no doubt others will follow, have ended their seasons. So my stance on it's quite clear. If there's football to play and we've got a job to do, we'll be there. But as long as testing is a central part of it, and my players and staff are safe. If it isn't, I think UEFA have been clear on they want it to be judged on sporting merit.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely fine. I think that some of the other scenarios surrounding coefficients, for example, and null and void seasons, I'm not in favour of those. I think that every point you earn in the Welsh Premier League, like every league around the world, you earn, and you earn well. So I think that decides to, or that needs to stay with your record. There's a bit in the Holland sort of scenario that I particularly like. Maybe it's an element of socialist in me, but I'm worried about the future of football, really, because clubs in Wales in particular, they rely on sort of gate income, sponsorship income, clubhouse revenues, etc. And there's a worry that that might not be available. The leisure industry might be one of the last to return. And I worry about clubs further down the line, November, December, January time, when it might pinch a little bit. So I think the bit in the Holland thing was when they talked about sharing European revenues. I think it's actually quite a nice thing to do, to ensure that the future of your league and clubs in your league and clubs in your country are actually safe to continue. But these are just my musings, really, to update our supporters, because truth is, I've got no insight as to what might happen. I've got my own views, but that's what they are, my own views. But to reiterate, there are lots of different scenarios. We're keeping a daily afresh, or daily update, if you like, of the news. But my bottom line, my absolute bottom line, is that we won't be taken to the field unless it's safe to do so. And I think that the FAW, for example, and anybody who's a policymaker would never ask anybody to do anything but that.
Thanks, Gav.
No worries at all. Thanks for your time, mate.